When you are negotiating for anything, always feel that you are in the driver's seat, because if the deal isn't right for you, you can always walk away. And walk away, because the worst thing to have is buyer's remorse, because that will stay with you much longer for those major purchases.
Welcome to It Is Written Canada. Thank you for joining us. Jesus warned, "For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it?" This is good advice when it comes to making major purchases. Do I buy a used car or a new car or lease a car? Do I rent an apartment or do I buy my own house? Will I be able to afford it, or will I, in the end, not have enough to finish paying it off?
Our special guest on It Is Written Canada today is Sven Tornlov, along with other financial experts who will share with us their wisdom on making major purchases.
Sven, thank you so much for joining us on It Is Written Canada today.
You're very welcome, and my pleasure to be able to talk about things that I'm passionate about.
Sven, what are the two major purchases that people have to make?
You know, for most people, the two very common will be a house and a car.
Sven, let's start with buying a car. Can you give us some tips that we need to follow when it comes to buying a car?
So if you're in the market for a new car, you're going to be going to a new car dealership. And if you're looking for a used car, I suggest that you go to one of two places. You still go to a new car dealership, and depending on your comfort level, also go to a private sale. If it's going to be a private sale that you're going to look to buy, talk to the owner and see if you can share in the cost 50-50 of having that car inspected. So if you don't buy it, the owner still has the 120-point inspection that they can then show to the next potential buyer. Now, when you get that 120-point inspection, if you're buying a Honda, let's say, take it to a Honda dealership. If you're buying a Toyota, take it to a Toyota dealership, because they will be so much more well aware, and they've seen that vehicle so many more times. They know what to look for.
So there are some people, when you talk about getting a car, they're thinking, I absolutely love this car, but it might be beyond their budget. So what kind of mindset should they have when they go into this so that they don't go beyond their budget and make an impulse purchase?
You know, the interesting thing is, whether you're buying a Ferrari or a Mercedes or a Honda, ultimately you're just going to get from point A to B. You know, that's the bottom line. So I think, again, you need to do a needs analysis, and you need to be purchasing the vehicle with the lowest cost per kilometer for your needs. I think that's very, very important.
So the color of the car, the make of the car really isn't the issue.
That is correct. You know, because the lowest cost per kilometer, when we fly, we're just exchanging dollars for kilometers fast. And so when you own a vehicle, you need to think of that in the same relevant context, that you're just exchanging dollars for kilometers.
Some people may have an emotional connection to getting a specific car. For myself, I knew I just wanted something affordable and safe, but I do have some friends that have their eye on a very specific car model, year, engine type. There's a lot that comes into buying a car, and for some people it can be very emotional for them. It's their dream, right? They've thought about it since they were a little kid. For most girls, they think about their wedding day, but for most little boys, a lot of guys that I know, they have a very specific type of car that they want. And understandably so, those are the toys that they play with, and when they become an adult, it's something that you're going to be seen in. It's something that your peers see you driving, right? So it's not only the transportation, but the status that also comes with a car. But realistically, you have to let the numbers in your bank account really speak for itself. You can have this desire to want a really expensive car, but can your wallet afford it? Can it handle that? And if it can't, you're going to have to make that tough but humble decision and really check yourself and say, okay, this is just not something that's within my means right now. I have to be realistic about what I can afford. I don't want to dig myself into a debt hole trying to get something that I love.
I remember when I was going to make a purchase of a car, I think that was a major thing for me. I went to a friend and he said to me, what you're thinking of is the type of car. He said, I'm a mechanic and I can tell you this type of car you're talking about is going to cost you more in the end. And all you need is a vehicle that's reliable. And so he told me the right vehicle to get. And I've continued to tell my daughters, you can get any car you want, just get this one. Okay.
You're right. For some people, it becomes a very emotional decision, of which vehicle to buy. And it's intimidating, really it is. And so if doing and going through that negotiation process is intimidating for you, you don't like that, you don't enjoy that, bring someone along with you that maybe has more experience or maybe enjoys that experience. A number of years ago, there was a lady, and she said to me, Sven, I need to buy a vehicle. I want to buy a used vehicle. I know exactly what I want. I know exactly what I need. But I'm feeling a little bit intimidated by going to the dealership and negotiating everything. Would you come with me? And so I love doing that. So I said, absolutely. Like, who does not want to go test drive cars? And so I said, yes, I will come with you. And I said, you show me which vehicle you want, and then we'll get the salesperson to come out and we'll start the negotiating process. And we're going to negotiate on 3 things. So for her, she was going to trade in her vehicle that she was currently driving. Now, ultimately, I think you'll do a little better if you can do a private sale. But since she didn't like that piece, for her, trading in was best. So I was going to help her negotiate the trade-in price, the purchase price of the used vehicle new to her that she was going to buy, and then also negotiate the interest rate that she was going to have to pay. And so she found the vehicle that she wanted, that she needed, that fit her needs for the lowest cost per kilometer for her. And it took about an hour with the salesperson, and we negotiated very strongly the sales price of her car. And then we also negotiated the purchase price. And then we negotiated the interest rate. We got a little bit better on the interest than they were going to offer at the beginning. And then we found out what her monthly payment was going to be. And so I said to the salesperson, I said, if you could lower that payment by $10 a month, I'm not sure how you're going to do it, but whether it's going to be increase the value of the trade-in or decrease the price of the sale of the vehicle. But if you can lower that by $10 a month, then I think we can go ahead and purchase the vehicle. And, I felt good after we had negotiated all this. Unfortunately, the individual that I was with wanted to give the salesperson an extra $1,000 because they felt so badly for them. But just remember that they are making a profit. They're making a profit when they buy your car. They're making a profit when they sell you the car. And they're also making a profit on the interest rate.
So she didn't give him an extra $1,000?
She didn't. No, she didn't. But nor has she ever asked me to come with her again to purchase another vehicle.
So when you're making those negotiations, you're always in the driver's seat because you're the person paying the money.
That's right. When you are negotiating for anything, whether it's, an ad on Facebook that you want to buy something small or a car or a home, always feel that you are in the driver's seat, because if the deal isn't right for you, you can always walk away. and walk away, because the worst thing to have is buyer's remorse. We've all had that, and hopefully it's only with, a $25 or $50 item, not a, $20,000 to $30,000 car or more when you buy a house. You don't want to have that buyer's remorse, because that will stay with you much longer for those major purchases.
There's a lot that comes into play when purchasing a car, especially when it's your first car ever. This school year was my first time ever getting a vehicle for myself. I used to drive the car that my parents had, but now it was finally my turn to make a purchase like this, and it's definitely been the biggest purchase I've had to make up until this point in my life. And looking into it, there's actually a lot more that come into play than you can realize at the beginning. Sometimes we think, okay, a car, just an initial purchase, I go, I buy it, and that's it. I have my car, all is well. All is well, but now you have insurance that you have to pay for, and if you don't have the best track record on the road, like maybe you've run a couple red lights or you have a couple speeding tickets, that can boost up your insurance. There's gas that you have to pay for, there's maintenance of your car, there's car washes. I mean, all of these things are additional expenses to that initial price that you thought you were just paying on your car. So there's a lot that comes into play. So you need to really take your time with a purchase this large, especially as a young person. You don't want to rush, especially since it's something that's going to be a chunk coming out of your bank account. So I've actually never been advised to buy a new car. I've never had anyone in my life tell me that it was a good idea. So there's lots of places that you can look to find a secondhand car, but one that's still safe. I personally got my car from Facebook Marketplace for a reasonable price, and it's safe. I just had to get the tires changed on it to winter tires, get a couple maintenance things fixed, but it gets me from point A to point B, and that's the purpose of a car, right? It's for transportation. It's not for the luxury of it, but just to get you from one place to the other. So as long as you're able to do that, then the car is serving its purpose.
Sven, what about someone who doesn't feel comfortable getting a used car, but would actually like to purchase a brand new car? How can they plan ahead to not have car payments like on and on and on into the future?
That's a good question. And just as a sidebar, I pose this question to a number of people. Come up with what you feel is the car that is the least cost per kilometer, So they scoured Facebook for what they could figure out what was the lowest cost per kilometer. So we did an analysis. And there are some new cars out there that are neck and neck with the best deals that you can find for cost per kilometer. So don't just think because you're buying a new vehicle that you're actually spending more. It might be a very good purchase, a wise purchase. But yes, you're right. Renee, when you buy a new car, you might be making payments for the next 5 years. But in your mind, know that you're going to keep that car for at least 10 years. And then after you've finished making your payments to the dealership and the car is fully paid, instead of taking that payment and absorbing it into your monthly income, continue making that payment, but to yourself into your future needs fund. So every month you take that same payment and put it into your own fund. Because then after 10 years, you will have 5 years where you have put money into that fund. So you should be pretty close to being able to pay cash for your next new car.
That's really good advice. So let's talk about the big major purchase, the house. I know it's good and probably best to own your own home, but sometimes it might be better to rent. When would we know whether we should rent instead of buying?
So we know that we have to rent if we don't have the down payment, because we have no option. We are only available to us is to rent. But there are many jobs that we take, especially in our early working years of our career, where we might be taking a 1-year contract, a mat leave. And so we're only going to be in the community for a year. And so on those situations, yeah, you should be wanting to rent.
Renting a place can be a good option for people, especially when you're young, you're single, or maybe even newly married. Especially in the time of life maybe where you're living in a downtown area, your job is in the mix of all these tall buildings. You want an easy way to get to work, a place that you're not going to have to drive long distances to commute to your workspace. So for me personally, I'm going to be starting work in downtown Edmonton. So it's realistic and it makes the most sense for me to live in downtown as well. And right now I don't have kids, I'm not married, so I don't need a space for my kids to run around on the lawn, to have a swing hanging from the tree. It's just not the season that I'm in right now. So evaluate where you are in life right now, what you can afford, and spend accordingly, right? And I've actually been advised recently that when you're newly married, don't buy a house 1 month into your marriage, You're still learning how to coexist with each other, what each other's living quirks are like, right? So wait around a year before you start looking into a house, and then once you go from there, you can see what both of you like, because it's such a huge purchase. It's not like you can buy a house and say, okay, no, I have the receipt, I want to return it. It doesn't work like that, right? So something as large and as big as this type of decision really needs prayer, advice from those who have come before you, and just really seek God's wisdom in His Word. You can find advice in there as well. So seek help, take your time. There's really no rush yet.
Sven, when do you think a person can look into the mirror and say, I'm now ready to buy a house? What kind of conditions do we need to meet in order to say, okay, I'm ready, I can get my first home?
So a number of factors have to be present. First and foremost, we have to have our down payment ready, and then we go to the bank and become pre-approved, that we know how much our purchase could be. And secondly, we need to have an emergency fund in place, because we are now purchasing a home where, who knows, an appliance might fail. And so if we don't have an emergency fund in place, we are going to be forced to be using plastic to pay for some of these items. So we want to have that present. Also, our job. We need to know that we are going to be in this area. We want to place down roots, and we want to be there for a while. And so therefore, that is when I feel that you can start in earnest to look to buy your first home.
Take your time. We often feel like we're being chased, especially as young people, to have our lives together by, let's say, the age of 25. If you're not married by this time, if you don't have a house by this time, you're behind the pack. But everyone's journey is different. So looking at what you can afford right now, that's okay. If it's something smaller than you anticipated as a child, that's okay. Situations will change. Emergencies will arise. Things that you never saw coming can come up in your life. So you have to really take into consideration how much you can afford right now. So if right now a house isn't within your budget, that's okay. And oftentimes as young people, we can compare ourselves. Someone your age may have a house right now and you may be still renting an apartment, but it's what's working for you right now. And you don't know their specific situation. Maybe they're just able to afford it because the job that they got allows for it. But right now where you are at, do what you can afford and be at peace knowing that it's the right decision to not spend more than you can handle.
Let's talk about the type of home. Give us some ideas of what are your options.
So in today's market, homes are expensive. And so, it's not like how it was a number of years ago. For many of people, their starter home is going to be in a condo or a townhouse, just because, the initial purchase price is going to be considerably less as opposed to moving into a detached home. So maybe that's where you're going to have to start to look, and for many of you, this might be your second or third home. You have lived in a condo, a townhouse, and so now maybe you'll be looking at a detached home and you might be thinking, I might want this home to be income generating. So to help pay for the mortgage. So you might be looking at a home, with a suite, a rental basement suite.
Is all debt bad? The simple answer is absolutely not. Depending upon what the conditions are, you're able to use the debt to purchase something that is going to grow in value. And once you've made that choice, now the next question that's, again, kind of going to a whole nother level is, what's the most effective way, once I have it, to minimize the interest that I'm going to pay for this item? Now, if I'm going to run up debt for stuff that has absolutely no value to it, then that I want to stay away from. But you really have to be looking at what's the debt for? Is it going to provide value? Does it contribute to, again, where you want to be down the road?
Sven, can you give us any advice on how we can decrease the interest rates on these major purchases?
Sure, let's talk about two things when we talk about interest rate. Let's talk about decreasing the interest rate, on our home loan. And we can advertise for that, and we maybe go see a mortgage broker. We ask our realtor, and they will canvass our mortgage through a mortgage broker, and they will then see and find the best lending institution that will give you the lowest rate. So that's one half of the equation. The other half of the equation is, over the term of the mortgage, over the life of the mortgage, to be able to pay the least amount of interest. And there are a number of strategies in being able to do that, but probably the most common strategy is, instead of paying monthly on your mortgage, is to check the box that you're going to pay accelerated bi-weekly and keep this payment the same as you would for a monthly. So you just cut it in half. So if your payment is going to be $1,000, every 2 weeks accelerated, you'll pay $500. So yes, a little bit careful planning, because there's going to be twice in a year where you will have 3 payments. So you'll be paying $1,500 as opposed to $1,000 every other month. Okay? And then also at the end of every year, when you get your tax return, take half of that return and make a lump sum payment onto your mortgage. So ask your mortgage broker to do the calculation on the term of the mortgage, going from just a regular monthly mortgage to an accelerated bi-weekly, and you'll probably reduce the term by a quarter. So it dramatically decreases the amount of interest you'll have to pay. And then, of course, lump sum payments go directly on the principal.
If I do a 15-year mortgage, my interest costs will be dramatically less than if I was to use a 30-year time frame. Okay? So the obvious answer would be, do a 15-year to force yourself to go. I say absolutely not. If I get laid off, or if I get my hours reduced, and now all of a sudden I have no wiggle room for this 15-year mortgage that I took, and now I go back to the bank and want some relief, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say no. Because now I represent a risk. On the other hand, if I take the longer term, but aggressively use the 15-year time frame, I get the best of both worlds.
Sven, is there any advice in the Bible when it comes to major purchases?
Yeah. Let's turn to the Bible. Let's turn to Luke. And Luke chapter 14, verses 28. I think this is so very important, because when we go into major purchases, we really need to sharpen our pencil and, consult professionals. And, I would rather ask a dumb question, or what people might consider to be a dumb question, if I don't know the answer, than to be stuck with buyer's remorse for, let's say, 30 years while I'm living in my home. So I would rather look foolish for 2 minutes than for 30 years. So here it is, Luke 14, verse 28. For which of you intended to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it? So I think that gives us such good advice, thinking about, do we have enough for a down payment? Can we afford, to do an accelerated biweekly payment plan, also covering our insurance at the same time on the home, because this is a major portion of our portfolio. We need to have it insured. And then also working into my budget that I can then pay annual lump sums which go directly against the principal.
Thank you, Sven. Do you have any other little points or anything else that you would like to share with our viewers?
I think just to reiterate, to consult professionals, get a good realtor. They will help you out a lot. Go through a mortgage broker so you can reduce the amount of interest that you're going to pay. And if you lock in for 5 years, every time it comes due to renew, go through the process again of a mortgage broker, because you might not go with the suggestion of the broker. You might go back to the lending institution that you have been with, but then they know what you could get and they might match that. So ultimately, you just need to be in the driver's seat. Always feel you're in the driver's seat.
Sven, thank you very, very much. Before we go, I wonder if you could pray for our viewers. There may be someone thinking of a major purchase, or maybe they've made mistakes in the past, to know that God is with them and guiding them, giving them wisdom, giving them patience, giving them hope, to look to the future and to give them wisdom to make these decisions in the right way.
Sure. Dear Lord, I want to thank you for your love that you have given to us, Lord. And you want us to be blessed. And so please give us the courage and the wisdom to talk to other people to help us through some of these major purchases, these major decisions in life. So thank you, Father, for the love that you have given to us. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Sven, thank you so much for joining us on It Is Written Canada today.
You're very welcome. It's been my pleasure.
Friends, our free offer is a most powerful little book on how Christians relate to money. It is entitled Jacob's Pillow, written by our friend Sean Boonstra.
Jacob's Pillow is a treasure of practical advice and instruction from God's Word, and includes a simple budget outline in the back of the book.
Before you go, we would like to thank all of you who have supported the ministry of It Is Written Canada with your prayers and financial contributions. Without your support, this television ministry could not have reached so many people for so many decades.
Yes, thank you. And we would like to invite you to follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also listen to our podcasts. And if you go to our website, you can see our latest programs.
Friends, if you want the kind of wisdom that God longs to give you, even in the financial areas of your life, we recommend you open the Bible, where it is recorded that Jesus found his assurance to defeat the devil through the word of his Father when he declared, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God."